there, friends, and welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. This is the knitting section 7 of the Tournament of Stitches 2020. At this point in the project, you have completed 6 different mosaic stitch patterns. We only have a few more to go before this project is complete, but it is not too late to get started. If you would like to join in the fun, simply click on the link right down there in the video description box, or right up there in that little I button. That will take you to the blog post, which will explain what the Tournament of Stitches is. It will give you links to previous Tournament of Stitches. You'll see the full list of materials, and at the bottom of the post, that is where you will find a link to each section of this project. There's a knit version and a crochet version, so make sure you get the correct one. As I mentioned, we've already completed 6 different sections of this really great scarf or infinity cowl. I don't know about you, but I am just loving the way they look. I chose to do my section 5 and 6 separated with just the plain 2 rows of color B before I did that center section. So mine did not mesh together, but I do know that many of you chose that option of joining section 5 and 6 together. And I know that because you're sharing pictures with me on social media using hashtag MarleyBird or hashtag Tournament of Stitches. I love seeing all of your work, so please keep that up. All right, let's go ahead, grab your homework as it's completed all the way up through section 6. We'll take a look at the instructions for section 7 and we will get started. As before, I want to start off by looking at the chart for this section. And just like all of the other sections, we have begun with row 1 and all the way through row 10 using color A. And these are just garter stitch sections. If you haven't picked it up by now, I've separated each of the mosaic sections with these 10 rows of garter stitch in color A. I think they look really cool. Then we have color B used for rows 11 and 12. We are ready to begin row 13 where we change our needles once again. Remember, we have to change our needles to make sure our gauge between these 2 bits are the same. The gauge is the same, I should say. So when we start number 13 here, we will begin to work across with our color C. One thing to point out about this particular section is that you will notice there are always 2 stitches slipped side by side whenever you slip stitches, with the exception of right here at the start and right here at the end. That means that as we create this really kind of chunky chevron look here, you see how that chevron looks? It looks so cool. The slipping of 2 stitches makes it get a nice big chunky chevron look. But we do have to make sure we are keeping those floats consistent and not pulled too tight. We do not want this section to pucker. So as you're working along, it's imperative that you pause, take a look at the work you've completed compared to the work you're working on at that point in time, and make sure it's not beginning to pull in on itself. We want it to be nice and streamlined all the way down the sides. This chart is pretty straightforward and there are written instructions as well. You'll notice that the start of the chart is identical to the end of the chart, meaning rows 13 and 14 are identical. Rows 15 and 16 are identical. So it's pretty easy working this chart up all the way. I am going to get you started just on a couple rows so that we can be reminded how to slip those stitches. And then I will let you go on your merry little way and finish this section. So I will grab my Post-it notes and I'm going to block off all of the stitches above my row 13. And let's jump in. I'm going to bring over my work. As I mentioned, I have already started, maybe I didn't mention this, I've already begun my 10 rows of color A and I've done my 2 rows of color B. So I'm ready to begin my color C, and I will grab my other set of needles here. You guys know me, I like to tie on my other color. I feel like it holds it better. It's just my thing. And then yarn management, that's always my little struggle here. I like to keep them pretty organized. All right, so away we go. We start off with a knit 4. So here we go. and then we're going to slip 2. So I go in as if to purl, goes in as if to purl, make sure my stitches are spaced out, and then I will knit 4. Knit or slip 2, knit 2, slip 2, knit 4. Again, make sure that flow is nice and comfortable. It's not too tight. Slip 2, knit 4, slip 2, knit 2, slip 2, knit 4, slip 2, and you finish up with a knit 4. Oops. Okay. Pretty easy, just like normal. I have my extra set of needles now. I will put that in my color A. That's what I always do. You guys know this. By this point in the tournament of stitches, don't you feel like we're old friends working together? All right, so I turn my work, and just like all of the previous sections, I will knit all the stitches that are the same color as what I'm using. And then I will slip the ones with the yarn in front so that it's on my wrong side, and make sure that as I transition back, I am careful not to pull that float too tight. Can you see how that float is just nice and comfortable and relaxed? You really want your floats to look really nice and relaxed. They should be pretty consistent and even throughout. Okay? Pretty easy stuff. Working on the wrong side is always the same. Okay? I'll now turn my work. I will drop my old color, pick up my new color. Take the chart and move up my post-it. I always put my post-its above the row I'm getting ready to work on. It's helpful because then you can always see what color the stitch is that's on the left-hand needle that you will be working into. So if, for example, I am slipping stitches, but I end up slipping the wrong one because for whatever reason, I can see below, oh, look, this stitch should be my color C that I'm slipping. Why am I slipping this color? And maybe I got off somehow. So it just really helps be able to see what the stitches are on my left-hand needle. Because right now, all of row 13 and 14, well, I guess all of row 14, that is on my left-hand needle. And I'm working row 15 into those stitches right there on row 14. So it makes it really easy to keep track. Okay, so make sure I have the correct color. And I start. So I begin with a knit 2. Then I slip 2. So slip 2, knit 2, slip 2, knit 4. Again, make sure those are all nice and spaced apart. Okay, make sure they look really nice and consistent. Slip 2. These are knit 4. Slip 2. Knit 2. Slip 2. knit 4, slip 2, knit 2, ooh, that's a knit 4, so 3 and 4, slip 2. Oh, I just dropped some stitches, but that's okay. Just put my needle back in them, and we are good. Gotta get more yarn out. Okay, so I slipped 2, so now I have to slip 2. Oh no, these are knit 2. Knit 2, slip 2, and knit 2. Okay. Looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. All right, so we're going to turn our work and work our way back. Row 16 is just like row 15, so it's pretty convenient in that way. But again, if you are reading your knitting, you already know that you will just knit all the ones that are the same color as the color B that you're using right now, and you will slip all the ones that are the opposite color, making sure that your float is always on the wrong side of the work. When you're done, turn your work. Let's take a look at what we have here. Again, this is just the start of this chevron pattern that we have going here. If you are to take your chart and just rest this right up to where you are on your chart, you should be able to see we just finished. Here, I'll put the Post-it note back on. We just finished with row 16 here. So if we are looking back, we see 2 whites, 2 whites, 2 grays, 2 grays, 2 whites, 2 whites, 2 grays, 2 grays, 4 whites, 4 whites. You see how that is exactly what we're looking at there? Pretty cool, right? Okay, so there's really nothing more to show for this section. By this point, you understand what it means to slip stitches, making sure your yarn is in the front or in the back, or better way to say that is make sure your yarn as it's floating is always on the wrong side of the fabric. You don't want that on the right side of the fabric. Keep your floats consistent. Make sure they're not pulling too tight. You also want to make sure they aren't like so loose that they're just hanging willy-nilly. They need to be a nice, consistent distance between the stitch it's worked into and then slipped and then the next stitch is worked into. I hope that makes sense. As you work through this section, don't forget when you get to the last 2 rows, you're switching over to the other size needles so that way you can be ready for section 8, where we will do that little bit of color A, the 10 rows of garter stitch, if you wanted to jump ahead and get those done. So you're ready to go with section 8. Go ahead, do that. I'm loving working on this project with you guys. I hope you're having as much fun as I am. When you share on social media, make sure you use hashtag #MarleyBird or hashtag Tournament of Stitches so that way I can see your work and smash that like button. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Let me know how you're doing as you're working along with me. Subscribe to the Marley Bird YouTube channel so that way you are up to date whenever I release a new video for knitting or crochet to help you become a better knitter or crocheter. I'm having a great time, y'all. I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks so much for joining me on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit subscribe. I've put a link right over there, or you can watch a couple of the videos I've already selected for you right down there. If you want to follow me on social media, I've put my links right over there. You can have all Marley all the time. Bye, guys.